According to a damning new report, England has lost a decade. Life expectancy has stalled for the first time in a century, and in some deprived parts of the country, it has shockingly gone into reverse. So what is it that happened in 2010 and had such a savage effect on social progress, health and quality of life? Oh yeah, the Conservatives came to power in coalition and introduced their ravaging, ideologically driven austerity cuts. According to the report's author, Sir Michael Marmot, this damage to the nation's health need not have happened. That's what makes it so much worse. It was all so avoidable. The Conservatives were warned repeatedly that austerity would plunge people into poverty, damn them to ill health, and send them to early graves. But they didn't listen. A UN poverty expert said that Britain's austerity measures had inflicted great misery on the population. But the Conservatives accused him of bias. Now, this government says it wants to help precisely those areas in the north where health outcomes have deteriorated. But the Tories are the ones that caused this problem. Why should we believe that they're going to fix it?
As you say, yes, we saw a decade of austerity because Liam Byrne left that note for his successor, David Laws, in 2010 saying there is no money left. And we had a decade of cuts that arguably contributed to the vote for Brexit. And now, of course, those votes have been lent to the Tories for the duration. And, of course, they have to make good those austerity cuts in order to keep those votes. So you're seeing huge amounts of infrastructure spending, 40 new hospitals, £33 billion being spent on the NHS. You're seeing a number of bus services and the restoration of some of the beaching cuts in rail links. And I argue probably you'll see them particularly in the north. So the Tories are going to love bomb the red wall because they need to keep those votes when it comes to the next election.
Yeah, I just want to make one point about austerity. I mean, I think we do need to make clear that it was a choice. There was an economic crash, 2008, but austerity was an ideological response to that. We didn't have to make the poorest and more vulnerable in our society pay for the failures of banking. There was all sorts of other things we could have done. We did not have to reduce corporation tax from 26% to 19%. We could have decided that the highest earners, the 5% of highest earners, would pay a little bit more tax. But instead, the government decided to pursue a policy, an austerity program that actually made the poorest people pay.
I don't think they've quite acknowledged that. Can we just hear from Saj? Sorry, former Chancellor.
Maybe Saj to you. Sorry. We know former Chancellor.
Former Chancellor Sajid Javid.
I didn't know you were that close. Your brother isn't.
After a decade of recovery from Labour's Great Recession, we are turning the page on austerity and beginning a new decade of renewal. Labour left behind a bankrupt Britain and we've fixed it. Now, thanks to those difficult decisions and the hard work of the British people, we can now afford to turn the page on austerity and move forward from a decade of recovery to a decade of renewal.
I think they will have abandoned their pledges towards the deficit in order to make good. But, they are going to borrow. They're going to spend trillions because we've still got very low interest rates. We've got very high...
Poor old Sajid Javid. I didn't think I was going to see him again. The Saj, what anti-Tory tosh? I have never heard such nonsense in all my life. As regards the fact, sadly, the death rate, it is not alone. There are other countries in the West where, unfortunately, this is appalling, the age of mobility has started to come down. But that was then. This is now. This is the new Boris Johnson-led government that has breached the red wall. I tell you this, you wait for the budget. For the budget, exactly what Rachel says. The money will flow, quite rightly, the money will flow up north. I think you will find that this Conservative government, they know that the good folk of Sevenoaks and Redhill will always vote as blue as your jacket, so they don't need to worry. They've not just borrowed it, they want to retain the they want, if you would, they want blue Labour, effectively. They want to go through there and they want to own it. The money will go up there. You can condemn the previous administration as much as you like. This is not the new Johnson government.
That was a party political
by the Boris Johnson party.
Look, can we back up here a bit? I'm a bit bothered about the way that we're wrestling what is essentially science into a political framework. The truth of the matter is that what Marmot says, I took the trouble to read his 150 pages or thereabouts. What Marmot actually says, he's very careful not to say this is about austerity. Yeah. He says it's a plausible explanation, but he doesn't say it was caused by austerity. And why? Because actually, if you do epidemiology, sorry, I'm going to be boring, geeky here, you will know that the most likely causes for a fall in life expectancy, or as he actually described, it's not a fall, it's the growth in life expectancy is slowed up. The most likely causes are 1, smoking,
obesity,
2, diet. And actually, the World Health Organization tells us that smoking takes 10 years off your life expectancy. In this country, amongst professional and middle classes, us, 10% smoke. Amongst poor working, routine and manual professions, 25% smoke. And my challenge to you, Rachel, is, honestly, do we need to get into the big political thing, or should we just actually save some lives by getting fewer people to smoke?
Well,
let's do the simple thing.
Poverty and health outcomes are completely tied in together, aren't they?
Absolutely. Well, let's have a look at what...
Why are you saying that? What does that mean?
Should we have a look at what
Evidence.
Sir Michael Marmot, who wrote the report that you read, should we have a look at what he said? England is faltering. From the beginning of the 20th century, England experienced continuous improvements in life expectancy. But from 2011, these improvements slowed dramatically, almost grinding to a halt. England has lost a decade. If health has stopped improving, that means society has stopped improving. And if health inequalities continue and, in fact, increase, that means inequalities in society have been increasing. I just want to clarify, because you're right that he was very careful. We can't say conclusively, we do not have another United Kingdom that did not have austerity for 10 years to measure one against the other. We can't say it conclusively. However, what we can say is that all the recommendations that he made the last time he carried out this research in 2010, so to avoid these declines in life expectancy happening, investing in children in their young years, creating stable and secure and well-paid employment, creating good health environments and creating good housing environments and solid communities. All of these things, the government, the Conservatives, who welcomed the report in 2010, did the exact opposite. Shut Sure Start centres, shut community centres, shut youth centres, cut school budgets, cut social care, cut bus services, cut health service. Exactly the things that he predicted would make the situation worse was what the Conservatives did. So that's why we're seeing the outcomes that we're seeing today. So it is political.
But just one sentence. He himself did a survey, and it's in the report. And he surveyed experts, and they said the single most important thing that affected life expectancy, which, by the way, didn't fall until 2015-16, was the sugar levy. It wasn't actually to do with public expenditure. More libraries is not going to increase life expectancy. Let's deal with the things that actually work.
The situation with the North, particularly, for example, the North East, has been created because for many, many years, people have not given a damn about the North. It has been the runt of the litter, and that has just been a fact. So I think just to say that this is all just because of austerity, I do think that's slightly lazy, and I tend to agree with Trevor in the sense of actually there's multiple contributing factors to this. And I remember in November there was a report came out called The State of the North, and it said that Hull, where I might have mentioned that I'm from, it's got a higher... No, it's got a higher... That's the wrong side of the bridge. It's got a higher mortality rate than Romania in Hull, and that really stopped me in my tracks, and it really shocked me. So this, for me, you asked the question at the end of your intro about how can we believe that they're going to fix this. Nick is absolutely bang on. They're going to fix this because they have to, because they're going to want to stay in power, and I actually think that lots of these places in the North and the Midlands that went Tory for the first time in decades, I think that there is a very strong probability that they will stay Tory if this government does what it says it will do, which is invest in those areas, and we shall wait and see.
We shall, and that's something to which I think we shall return.